We're live on YouTube. It is Rich Lieberman. I'm here on a late Monday, uh, trying to make sense out of something, and some things are completely senseless. And I know I'm creating a cardinal sin here by reacting to what is commonly referred to as trolls, but when they become more organized, then I have to respond. And I don't really care about legitimizing these yahoos and all that, but I have to. And because sometimes the venom gets beyond just internet superficiality and play here. It gets, well, let me just describe the situation. So, first and foremost, and there's legitimate criticism amongst some of you towards me that are not connected to trolls and so forth. That I thought, well, let's just address a few things, even though I may have repeated myself in the past, of course, and now. But I think it's significant enough that occasionally it's good to kind of reemphasize what I'm doing here, my own little missive, if you will. First off, I'm not here to make friends. And I mean that sincerely. If I was looking to, in a way, channel my criticism in order to curry favor with people that either are disgusted with me or don't want anything to do with me or anything of that I would do it in a different way. It wouldn't be this way. I'm here to, in my mind, give out legitimate criticism and to call out people and organizations that I find and deem irresponsible and incompetent, and get to you my reasons for the incompetency, for the fact of the manner in which these organizations act. And most of them are radio stations and TV news operations and internet sites and individual people who participate in the action on these and in these organizations. That's it. Never been about anything else. I feel as if I've been on both sides, which I have, of the fence. I was one who was involved in news presentation and sports presentation, and now I'm a connoisseur of news, or sort of a uh, an ombudsman, if your ombudsman, if you have given me that duty charitably. It's not official, of course it isn't. But some of the information that I put out there is usually accurate. Sometimes there's mistakes made, which I'm the first and foremost to say I'm sorry, and I do my best with the staff that I have, which the you're looking at right now is my staff. And I'm not going to go out and say I'm some, savior. I'm here to part the Red Sea and I'm doing the Lord's work and all that. I mean that figuratively speaking. Look, I do a little broadcast, nothing more, nothing less. And yeah, of course, I want more and more people to reach out and to pass the word, which is happening directly and indirectly. But what I provide is constructive criticism. Do I go overboard sometimes? Of course I do. Of course I do. And I never ever back down. I won't back down. And even though the venom and the criticism of myself has reached a new level of low, I'm still not going to back down. In spite of getting some rather hurtful, downright below the belt, anti Semitic words. I've been called a kike. I've been called a fat Jew. I have been called every name in the book, which frankly, you could call me every name in the book. That doesn't hurt me. It's the anti Semitism, it's the referring to me as a cheap Jew and a kike. Those words are hurting. And again, I realize to many of you, why even dignify these folks, if you can call them that, they're cowards because they hide behind their computer and they spew out the worst kind of venom, yet they're not ballsy enough. They have no balls to identify themselves because largely, and a lot of these people, if you can call them that, work at other media companies. They do, and they hide. And a lot of them, by the way, are not the ones who are spewing out the anti-Semitism. Although, look, in this day and age, when you have the internet, you have computers, and when you can use the computer to spew out not just anti-Semitic, but race and bigotry and all that. They do. They do. And they're usually interns, perhaps producers, perhaps those that have worked in the past, maybe now are in a different line of work, or maybe they are in the basement of a loved one or something or another. I don't really know nor care. But when you get to that level, it does become sort of hurtful. It does become somewhat disturbing, dare I say that word too. And look, I understand the nature of the business. This is the world in which we live in. The internet is both a great component of our technology, but it also can bring out the worst in human behavior. Again, a lot of these people don't act human, they act like pets and dogs, but dogs wouldn't have the kahunas to say some of the things. Dogs are much more civil and much more, shall we say, adult like in that regard, more human like than these alleged human beings who are nothing more than cowards who hide again behind their keyboard. I've said this often, I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. I never go after anybody's family unless they go after mine. And I don't have much of a family. That would be very, very difficult. I also am very public about who I go after. And it's always in the manner that is their job and what they do and what they say on a mic or what they say on the camera. It's never my business, and I wouldn't, because I believe in the word karma, that you don't go after families. You can go after the individual and the various news outlets that they work at. And like I've gone after Disney because I think what they represent, and in trying to use their television news stations as a means of what I believe is nothing more than propaganda in the building a better Los Angeles or building a better Bay Area, when in turn the hyperbole of that is just is so obvious and superficial. Yet Disney, and they come across with their various Lovelands and amusement parks, but in reality they're not really spreading peace and happiness throughout the world. So I call them out, much like I call out Cumulus and Odyssey of late. And Cumulus, when I said about 14 years ago, I said that Cumulus is not in the business of building radio stations and becoming broadcast entities that are whole and a wonder of the community. In fact, they have nothing to do with broadcasting, that they're financial operations that are magnificently lousy at what they do, and that they would eventually kill radio stations, not only in this market, but beyond. They did that here when they murdered KGO radio and put them to the ground, like they're starting to do and have begun to do and will ultimately do with KMBR, which has now become kind of like a college radio station, which they've done with KSFO when they massacred that station in its heyday, and now have wrecked, ironically, two radio stations, both KGO and KSFO. So I've gone after Cumulus, and I've gone after Odyssey, and which is owned by Intercom, and I've gone after individual people and radio stations and so-called newspapers. Like, for example, the greatest, and I do mean the greatest high school newspaper in the entire country, and that's the San Francisco Chronicle. And I've gone after them and their pettiness and their lousy reporting, unless you like purple burritos and red houses in the Mission District. If you like a good restaurant newspaper, then the Chronicle is your choice, really. They do a magnificent job, the high school newspaper that they are. So I've gone after various companies, which I believe has not only hurt the little media that we have left here in the Bay Area, but it's damaged a whole bunch of stations, legacy stations, and legacy news outlets. You know, look at the Chronicle on Sundays, and that should tell you about the state of newspapers. And yes, newspapers as a whole are having a hard time. I get all that. But this one in particular, courtesy of the Hearst Corporation, is most onerous. And it's become a joke. It really has. And look at our area. In an area this size, in the number 4 for radio, and the number, even though we don't have any radio left in the Bay Area, number 6 for television. Look at what this market has become with basically one paper, maybe 2 television news operations that are going to the crapper, that have become really ridiculous and led by individuals who have no business leading television news operations, who couldn't lead a hooker to a strip show, are nonetheless being told to run TV news operations. But they themselves have become inconsequential and ridiculous. And yes, I will criticize Cron, and I will criticize KPIX and CBS News Bay Area. And even every now and then, I will also laud them when they do something good, because I believe in equal opportunity targeting. And yes, mostly going after them when they are ridiculous and incompetent, because that's, folks, what people pay attention to. I long ago gave up on trying to be Peter Pan and Mary Poppins and talk about all the good things that these companies do and all the pleasant news and the positive news and all that. And I recall the story about 20 years ago when there was a company that began a news operation. All they did was broadcast good news. Remember that? Good news, no bad news, only good news here. And they went out of business about 3 weeks after they started doing just good news only. So I follow that practice, that business model. Look, I'm not for everybody. I'm not. What I do love, though, the irony of all ironies, is the people that get in my face and tell me how much of an asshole that I am. And few of them also call me kike and certain Jewish slurs and all that, which I've become accustomed to now, unfortunately, are the ones that are on here right away. Don't contribute anything, much less financially or otherwise, but are the first ones to lecture me, tell me what to wear, make fun of my look, which is fine. That's open season. Go ahead. Hell, I'd make fun of what I look like, but that's just me. I'm not for everybody. And again, I'm not here to make friends. I don't have elaborate sets. I don't have flashy graphics. I don't have wonderful fashion models. I don't sit behind a mic and spew out the virtues of the 49ers third round draft pick and how wonderful this, that, and the other is. My issue, my dealings with you guys, is I try to be substantive. And many a times I am. Some days are not those days, but I do my best. And while I'm not going to please everybody, and even if I was the Masterpiece Theater of a local YouTube blog show, we all have our days and moments. I'll keep saying this on and on and on. You watch me because you want accountability yourself. You want to get the virtues of what the hell is going on at KQED and just where the hell the money is going, even though they take in millions and millions and millions of dollars, some of it on their own doing and not courtesy of the government, which the government, courtesy of our president, is starting to say, hey, enough of this. We're going to spend our money a different area. And good for them in that regard, because I happen to agree with it. I'm not going to go after KQED unless KQED manages to sink a whole bunch of money somewhere, but not to what they supposedly are in the business of doing, and that is providing content and news and information and issues and programming that are designed to be for the good of the community or even for the bad of the community, but news nonetheless. And when they don't do that, yes, I'm going to call them out. And yes, I get irritated and frustrated and go bonkers when I struggle to provide for you, to rub two nickels together. And yet, when KQED takes literally millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars from you guys, and you have no you have no problem, I should say, sending them 50, 100, 1,000, $5,000 because you want to see Masterpiece Theater and a restaurant show that long ago, jumped the shark, then yes, I'm going to bitch and moan about that. You could come after me. You could berate me. You can call me anti-Semitic names and lampoon me because I go after KCBS because I feel a lot of the time when they're actually do broadcasting and when they're not injecting us with their 8 million commercials every other 5 minutes, that they don't serve the community, that they're not fair, that is part of their apparatus, their national and organizing company that allows them to broadcast. So yes, I will be pissed off and I will lament the fact that you willingly, some of you, give a lot of money to KQED with absolutely no accountability whatsoever. And yet I'm screaming and yelling to try to get some just limited amount of funding so I could continue to provide for you the necessary counterattacks against some of these companies that have no business, being allowed to continue on and to carry on when some of the deeds that they put out are so onerous and ridiculous and frankly need to be called out. I'm not making myself a savior. I've never, ever, ever claimed to part the Red Sea or cure terminal diseases. What I do here is what I do. A lot of the times I have massive, massive flaws, myself included. So I thought I would say all that. I appreciate those of you, even those of you who have a different opinion. I ask for debate and dissent. And please, please, if you could construct a sentence, be passionate about why you disagree with me on certain opinions that I have expressed here. Lecture me about the fact that I way too many fucking times play with my glasses now because I'm getting used to putting on glasses. Tell me if how you could portray me in a different line of clothing. My suit and tie, my looks, my non-intended for head. Yes, I look like Uncle Fester. Yes, I've been known every now and then to do lousy impressions and some very good impressions, but I try. I try. Sometimes I'm humorous, sometimes I'm not. I'll leave that to you. But I want to thank you all who watch, who have contributed, even those of you who have not contributed funds so that I could continue to give you what I think is a pretty damn good opinion or two or a scoop every now and then. I appreciate you coming here and watching me and spreading the word because last time I checked, nobody does what I do. And for that, yes, I will pat myself here, there, everywhere and tell you that I'm Rich Lieberman. This is the 415 Media site on YouTube and on my Google page. Thanks for watching. And of course, see you later. Alligator.